Good morning, good morning, good morning. Ricardo Wilkins here for another CUTE session, Champions Using Teams Effectively. Glad to see you here again this morning. And as always, we're just here to geek out on Teams, use the Q&A to ask any questions here live, and those that are watching on demand can ask questions, but hopefully we'll have some things to talk about here that are of interest to you. I was going to take some time to just talk about a couple new features from a government client perspective that have come out that you may or may not have seen yet. So we'll kind of talk through that. But again, the Q&A is live. Hopefully, yes, it's live. And so at any time, feel free to put some questions in there. We'll be watching it. I have my companion Stacy in the background as well. She's watching Q&A as well.
Yep. Hi all.
Yep. So yeah, Stacy and I were kind of talking, and there were a few features, some new things that we thought would be worth showing here. So let me do something here. Go and get this a little bit wider. There we go. All right, so we're looking at my tenant here. First thing is a little thing that, in a perfect world, you never have to use, but getting logs in case there's an issue that you need to get logs to a support person regarding some issue in your Teams client. There have been ways to do this in the past, but they have recently kind of updated it a bit and made it a little more user-friendly to do so. So if you notice here, if I go to my taskbar, of course, I'm weird and I'm putting my taskbar here on the left. Your taskbar is probably on the bottom, but in either case, you'll have the little arrow that opens up additional icons, one of which should be, Teams while Teams is running. And so hopefully, you could see that here. See a little, oops, that one there, right? So right click, some few things in this piece. I don't know if you knew that this was here, things like changing your status, signing out, going to settings, quitting altogether. But there's also a couple of things, get logs and collect support files. Get logs, if I click that, will basically just fire up this big text file with stuff that I would not expect you to read. It should just be something you're giving to a support person. But I think there's a little more extensive one, and kind of just depends on what the support person needs, but collect support files with one click here. And hopefully you can see that, right? Collect support files. But with one click here, we right click, collect support files, and you'll see over here one file was downloaded, and it's in my download folder, and it's a zip file, dated and everything. If I dive into it, it's a bunch of stuff. So again, I have no interest in opening these and seeing what's there, but a support person certainly would. So, of course, you could then put this in an email or, do whatever you need to do. But that should be an easy way, again, if asked, or if you're just trying to provide some additional info to someone who's helping you, at least that's easy to do, nicely, conveniently, zipped up together. So I thought that was pretty cool. So again, right clicking on that icon here. I don't think
I'm a big fan of this addition too. I just know that the process to pull those logs is not been an easy one before this. So the fact that it's there and is a one-click action is tremendous. Hopefully our customers won't have to do it very often, but when they do, it won't be quite the multi-step process it used to be.
Right. Absolutely. So hopefully that helps. Another feature that I like, especially because it is about adding external users, people outside of your tenant, in chat. Okay. And so I like this because certainly I have lots of customers in different tenants, GCC tenants, tenants outside of the Microsoft tenant. And before this feature, I typically would, log into as a guest into the tenants where I have been, my customers have invited me as a guest and would chat with them there. So, now though, I mean, obviously we've shown this before where I can chat with anyone internally like Nestor there, but what about someone external? And in this case, as an example, you're not seeing it here, but I've got an external tenant here. And in this case, even a non-GCC tenant. So I'm just grabbing their username here. I'm going to put their entire email address, and you can see mod administrator external is there. And I think maybe you may have been able to do this previously to some degree, but one of the new things going on here is the ability to do it in a group chat. So you can see I can choose that person, and I think before this would have been the end of it. I could just have a single chat with that person, but now adding an additional person, like, and I want to add somebody that I haven't already. Let's go with Megan. Oops, let's see, click here, Megan B. And then I'm gonna do the full. Let me see. I'm using the nice new feature for GCC, this profile card. I just want to copy this so that I can get the rest of this stuff here. Boom. So I wanted to do it this way because you saw when I put the administrator in, it kind of already looked like it knew the administrator. That's because I have chatted with that user before. I wanted to show what it looks like for a brand new person. So I put in an email address. It doesn't find any matches, but it is giving me the option to search for that person externally. So I'll go ahead and do that, and it searches and finds her. Again, this is outside of my tenant, but it found her. No, she's a Teams user there, and so now I can add her. So I'm adding 2 external people. So again, I think this is the big change here, is that I think previously it was just 1. And if you're a good disciplined chat user, you may even want to name this something. Name the chat there. And and what I think is also cool is, especially if I'm talking to my customers, but say I want to add someone else from my internal account team. I mean, this can be a combination. So here I am also adding Nestor, an internal person, and we got that whole thing going. So you can see 2 external folks, 2 internal, or internal to this demo org, all chatting here. So to me, that's pretty cool, especially for anybody out there who deals a lot with external folks that they partner with. Certainly, folks like me that have customers, different projects outside of the tenant. I think that's pretty cool. You will notice the lack of calling them. So I think that's one limitation of this project, or this external piece. Unlike a group chat with 2 internal folks, I can still make that call here. The only reason the video is disabled, I think, is because my demo environment doesn't have any webcams or anything. And you still get pop out for that group, so that's good. So actually, my phone that's interesting. My phone is disabled there, but on pop out it's working. That's interesting. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I don't know what I get. So I guess the phone does work there. I'm not sure what's going on there. And let me get rid of that. But I've got the disabled sharing there and disabled sharing here as well. So I think at least that part's consistent. And as you can see here, even with those external users, and I'm not sure if it knows that they are like, Teams only, which they happen to be, but I mean, I'm getting a pretty robust chat area here as well. I mean, not just, you would think that it might just be text chat here, like I'd only see that, but I'm seeing other things here as well, Giphies and whatnot. So, and so, yeah, in my experience, I've been able to have pretty, richly formatted chats with external parties, and it's cool. I mean, I don't know, maybe you appreciate it more when in the past where, jumping between tenants to have those conversations, to have them in your own tenant. And then on their side, it's in their own tenant. They're not having to switch to your tenant to communicate with you and vice versa. So I think it's pretty cool. So that is external group. I guess you call that group chat for external participants. That's what that is. Okay, and of course, again, even as I'm talking about these things, your questions don't have to be about these things. If you got any random question, just throw it in the Q&A. But in the meantime, the other one I thought was cool too is we already knew about, in a meeting, managing microphones. So basically disabling a user's ability to turn on and off their microphone. And we now have that for video too. And the funny story, and I don't know if my customers are on, the customer I'm talking about is viewing now, but I mean, one of our customers, talked about an interesting meeting in which someone, for lack of a better word, was not camera ready, but had their camera on in a large meeting. And so this ability to manage video is going to be key for those kind of scenarios. I'll just leave it at that without going into any more detail. So let's take a look at that. Let me fire up a meeting here. This is also, I think, important. It's another step and an important step, given that we are now in this 1,000-way meetings, world, right? Our meetings can get large, and so we need more controls. So I'm going to start up a meeting here. Go ahead and join it, and I will. Who do I have open here? This is. Who's this? This is Deborah. So we'll add her. Deborah. Give her a call. She's back there. She will accept and she will join. And you know what? I think to really make this shine, I may want to. Let's give it a shot. And I may have to just join my actual a client that actually has a camera. But let's see what we got here. So first off, let's go to our meeting options. And we've been here before. We've seen all the cool stuff that's here, and allow mic for attendees was there. Previously, we've talked about that on this in this series, but now allow camera for attendees, yes or no. Okay, so I can say no here, for instance. Notice I'm hitting save and closing this. It's really not going to do anything because right now Deborah is a presenter. I brought her in as a presenter, so that issue is not going to occur to her. So let's make her an attendee so we can really see what happens here. And I can certainly either do this individually, or I could have done it full blast for everyone in the meeting options by coming here, who can present. Instead of everyone, I'll say only me. That is the equivalent of making everyone else an attendee. So I'll just use that particular feature in this case. And if I go back to participants, you'll see now Deborah is an attendee. And if you hover over her, you see that, hopefully you are seeing that disabled video there. So if I go to her client, you're an attendee. This is Deborah here. You're an attendee. You won't be able to share content. So that's just telling her about her being put into attendee status. She may have gotten, and I may have missed it because I wasn't showing her, but I think she would have gotten a message about her video being disabled. But you can see here, only select participants can share video. So she is certainly blocked from turning on her video. And then she doesn't have a mic in this case. But what this does also call out is the fact that we have per user settings for both of those things. So I've made everyone attendee and disabled camera for everyone. But for Deborah specifically, imagine, 100 people in this meeting, cameras disabled for all. But for Deborah, I'm now allowing the camera. And over on her side, let's see, it did enable it. Again, this demo tenant that she doesn't have a camera, but the actual disabled icon is gone, so she is enabled for camera. So it's just cool that on a per user basis, we can control both of those things. And then of course I can just make her a presenter to give her, kind of full rights at that point, or take her back to an attendee, and then she would fall into whatever the rules of the meeting are, which in this case were no camera. And so from that perspective, especially in a large meeting, if I really wanted to kind of control it or make it more formal, maybe even make it more like a live event, I would think that my meeting options that I would choose would be not to allow mics, not to allow cameras. I'd probably stick with this. Who can present? Maybe myself and maybe some additional folks. In my opinion, I feel like I would always give it to only me, and then I would selectively, once the meeting starts, if there's a couple more people that need to be presenters, I would just, right click on them in the meeting versus trying to choose it here ahead of time. But yeah, turning everything off and hitting save would then essentially make everyone an attendee. Hundreds of people would be attendees. Both camera and mics are off. And then during the meeting, if I did need to do something, I have that freedom to do that on a per user basis. I could either decide very selectively camera or mic, or just make them a presenter and give them all the rights. So I just think that's awesome. That's awesome even when our meetings were 300 people. It's definitely awesome when our meetings can get to 1,000. So this really gives you a lot of flexibility for controlling the environment during a meeting that could be super large.
Yeah, I was just going to say that this unlocks perhaps more attendee controls in a way that maybe if you weren't already using the full capacity of meetings because we had that 300 limit and of course we didn't have this, now that this is available, I feel like it opens up more public facing meeting options.
Yep.
Options that you may be using other tools for. Now Teams can accommodate those. The ability to control at the granular level between who is an attendee, who is a presenter, and do that on the fly during a meeting is very powerful. And I'm thrilled, so thrilled that our customers have that now in the government cloud. Yeah. Because there are so many use cases for having these types of meetings that the public can join. And we certainly want to encourage and support any mission of an agency where outreach is so key. So yeah, these tools are there, and embrace them because they're going to help you have safer and more secure meetings, even when you are inviting the general public.
Yeah. And yeah, and if it's not clear to folks, just as Stacy's talking, this is we often have that question, do I use a regular Teams meeting or a live event? If it's not clear, this all puts us in a new era where I could get 1,000 people in a meeting and still keep that phone number. All of these hundreds of people can still call in, but I can still control things, from whether it's cameras or or video or cameras or mics or whatnot. So just a lot of flexibility there for that. So yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool, and it's certainly cool for folks out there who have had issues with camera or video use among their users. So
yeah, and who hasn't? We've We've all been there, especially over the course of this last year. So it just makes these controls even more important and relevant to today, and especially in returning to hybrid work environments. I'm sure that you will still have some folks in every agency who have to remain remote for one reason or another. And when you have folks who may be attending a meeting in a room, interacting with folks that can't be in that room, then being able to control these things is just key. And Microsoft is definitely keeping that in mind as we're releasing these new features and planning these new features. We're looking at it all through the lens of the hybrid work environment. And of course, we were looking at the lens of, oh my gosh, the whole world is remote, and now we realize that there are different regions coming back at different frequency, and we want to be as flexible as possible. So that's why these feature releases are being timed the way they are, and point to embracing that hybrid work environment.
And it's also just a new culture of meetings. I mean, we're starting to get used to someone might inadvertently have their mic on, background noise, and so let me just be helpful and mute them. Well, now that more people are trying to get used to turning on their video, we got the same phenomenon. Hey, somebody's turned on their mic, they don't really realize it's on. They're like walking around the house or something. Now this ability, well, let me just turn off their video. I mean, I think these are just great features for just this life of living with, meetings and all of the nuances that are involved, just giving us more flexibility on managing them. I think it's just great.
Yeah, I agree. And I think our customers agree too. I mean, the questions that I get around features that are coming really do center on empowering that Teams meeting as much as possible. We just have heard repeatedly that having the full Teams meetings experience in the government cloud is so essential, to the point where some of these features that we're getting in the government cloud are releasing at the same time as they are in commercial, because we have been able to manage the audit process so that we can deliver those things as quickly as possible for our government users, same as our commercial users.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I don't see any questions in Q&A. I thought I'd just remind everyone about our recent government series on meetings. Both Stacy and I participated in this. So again, aka.ms/teams meetings #4 government GOVT. And this will be out there. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, that's going to be great learning resource for quite some time, given the before a meeting, during the meeting, after the meeting, and all the best practices we shared in those sessions. So a lot of great content. And Ricardo, I think I plugged this one at our last office hours too, and I mentioned that the playback, because there's so many hours of content, play it back at time and a half and blaze on through. Get the good information in half the time.
There you go. Yeah. Indeed. All right. Well, we're approaching an hour here. I don't see any questions. So hopefully this was helpful, and we will see you again next week. Q&A will still be open for a little while. If you have some lingering questions, Stacy and I will be watching it. But otherwise, I think we will see you all next week, and have a great weekend.
Great. Thanks, guys.